So I would like to bring up these two individuals. I'm really proud of them. I've known them for a long time. I've always looked up to them. I would like to bring up first and foremost Dr. Sean Chandler. If you would like to come on up here. Round of applause for Dr. Sean Chandler. Right on. And Dr. Lynette Chandler, come on up as well. How about a big round of applause for these two beautiful couples, hey? They're the epitome of an Indian couple, hey? Look at them. Long hair, brown skin, batting eyes. Like when I look at Sean, I just see him in his breechcloth and his buckskin thong. That's all I see. Riding a war pony down the Marias River. Hey. All right, here you go. The mic is yours.
Wireless, I guess. Does this come on automatically? Gotta wake it up. What's this button? I guess I'll fade in a little bit. Right. Well, hey, Denise said me to walk Nana on, man. I'm Sean Chandler. I'm from the Grobon tribe, or Whiteclay people, and I teach at. I'm an instructor over at Ani Nakota College. I teach most of the Indian Studies courses there, and another thing I do there is help in this school, our Whiteclay language school. And well, let Lynette introduce herself.
My name is Lynette Chandler, and I'm the director of the Whiteclay Immersion School at Ani Nakota College. I've been there since the year 2000, and that's what I do all day is work at the Immersion School as the director, but also as a teacher or cook or whatever we need during the day.
Okay, we're going to team up on this presentation, so if you need to interrupt me for anything, just say so, and she could come in here when if I get stuck or if she wants to elaborate. But I always want to make sure that I'm still learning myself this language, our Ani language, the Grobon language, and that's one of the things that we're going to talk about in our presentation. This presentation is more like a history of our path, how we came along to this, where we're at now, and like she said, she's been here since 2000 or so, and I came later on. I stayed in Bozeman, and I still worked at this place called UPS for a while. I was there for a while, and then well, she came up here, and I was still finishing up some things down there, and then I came along, and I was able to luck out and get a job at our college. Nobody else applied to the Indian Studies position, so luckily I got that job. So. And then, that's what I do, and I try to help out as much as I can with this immersion school and still learn and still be able to teach. But this, like I said, I wanted to go do a little backstory of how this school came about, because I don't think you could leave this part out of the road to this goal of immersion school. And the program, which you could probably tell us better than I can, but it was called the Speaking Whiteclay program, and this project was from 2001 to 4, and it was a speaker-learner program where they hired younger age people, probably teens or 20s, 30s, or so, 40s, with fluent speakers at the time. And it was an ANA funded, a 3-year program, like I said, and approximately maybe 6 or 7 class 7 people that Lynette helped go through this program. Another main component of this project, we had language and culture camps, and these were probably one of the big highlights. And some of you may have remembered these, but you see we were a little bit more rich then because we had all these elders present at the time, and we focused these first 2 summers. In the month of June, I think it was a week-long thing, or about 4 or 5 day long thing. And we camped out in Little Rockies. And there you see the camp being set up in that upper right corner. And a lot of our elders, this must have been lunchtime or something, or breakfast or something. A lot of them are along there interacting. And down here we had Selena, I think she was doing a TBR lesson with some of the people there. Buster, I see. So this was the focus of those first 2 summers, 02 and 03. And it was crazy because I was looking at these, a lot of memories I was doing when I was going through all these photos, and I forgot I had these, and a lot of memories. And sometimes you get sad because some of them are gone, but at least you have those memories and they're on photograph. And so that 3rd year that we had this language camp, we not only focused on our tribes here, our people here, but it was more international. We had members of our state's tribes, and also international. Lynette invited some people from Hawaii, Hawaiians and Maori people. And she had met, another part of her job is she goes out and tries to gain funds and get best practices and rub elbows with people that have already done this before, like the Maoris and the Hawaiians. And so she's gone to their conferences several times. And I suppose I was to accompany on these trips too, but I don't like to travel, so I just stay here and do whatever, do my work here, I guess. And, so I missed out on several trips to New Zealand about 2 times, Australia, and all those. But she went to South America, and then she caught a stomach illness, and she lost 50 pounds on that trip. And it was sometimes she still suffers from it. And I said, see, that's why I don't go anywhere. I just stay here. And if I'm going to catch a disease, it's going to be from the United States. So, but this was the best, or the big thing that we had for this project, the big ending thing, June of 2004. And I should say too, the elders each did their own presentation. We had Minerva, she did one on plants, and Selena did her presentation. I think there was a couple other elders that did dry meat cutting. And, you see our Moses and Skinner there, Merle, they did a presentation on traveling and horse knowledge. And it's like I said, when I was going through these photos, you see good memories and people. and even Lynette's mentor, Daryl Kipp, who gave her a lot of advice and knowledge. He was always there when she needed help. And this was a crazy first day. It rained pretty much the whole time, the whole conference. Everybody was cold. There's other pictures you see. All these guys are huddled up in blankets and everything. And it was raining that first day, and Daryl went and grabbed a couple of garbage sacks, and that was his raincoat. So, and then he did an impromptu comedic performance too, and we have that all on tape and DVD. And that's I can't remember that guy's name. What was his name? He was from New Zealand.
It was Belknap from Aotearoa in New Zealand.
Yeah,
He's a Maori.
And so one of the early goals, not only all that stuff, that was the main part of it. Even though it was speaking Whiteclay, it was a Rowan-focused program. Luckily, we had enough money to include the Nakota in doing their history as well. But one of the things, I suppose this was a long-term goal, and by the end of the program or the grant cycle, it was supposed to lead off in immersion school or language school for children. And Lynette hustled and did it so fast. I think it was the second year of this grant that she said, we need to do this now. We have our elders in place. We still have them. They're still able to come to see us right now. We're still able to go see them, and they're still sharp, and they still want to teach us. And so we started this off, and the first day, it was the day after Columbus Day, and it wasn't planned at all. It was just, I don't know, it was just happened that way, or maybe it was planned, I don't know, but this left picture, that was the first day. There was only 3 students that had parents that were really interested, and they sent their children to us, these 3. One of them, of course, was my daughter, the middle one. And then by the end of the week, I think we had 6. And there you see them learning sign language. They were doing some sign language. And another thing, too, is to keep in mind, we started from real humble beginnings, too. Like I said, this wasn't planned, and you think about space, building, and everything like that. We had to rustle a classroom, and so we used one of the classrooms at the college. And it was after school. It was mainly an after-school program, too. And then, 2 years later, the college was also embarking on a new building to house the archives and to house Indian Studies classes and other rooms, and they devoted one room to the immersion school, and we quickly outgrew that. I think some of our offices turned into classrooms, so we had to move out of those offices, and I think Lynette even moved out into the lobby for 1 year, I think. So you make all these sacrifices. And that bottom right picture, that was the first day of this full day school. And I think there's only 10 there, but by the end of the week there'd be 2 more, so we had about 12 to start with. And then there, I don't know what year that was, maybe 08, the other picture that I found. And some of the teachers and some of the students, some different students from the other one. And up there, the top picture, that one is a new group that we started. So we kind of have a cohort of students. So that first group, they were all, I think, 3rd grade. And then, the next year they'd be 4th grade, and then we'd start a new group for 3rd. So we started them like that and kept following them. And maybe by the time that group was going to be done, like they were, I think in junior high by then, we started a new group, a new cohort. And that's them in that top right, so that would be about, I don't know, 2011, I think, or 10. And they're grading sweetgrass there. So some of the determination and sacrifice that you have to give, some of the challenges, and you need to say it again. But, funding, of course, that's the number one. Money for space, or to pay the teachers, or even food, even snacks or the lunches. As I could probably go on. There's probably all of these have one little, long story connected to it. But I won't go into them too much. But those are the challenges we face. And by the time we really got going too, the elder presence was starting to diminish. These fluent speakers that were born with it, sometimes they couldn't get to come in because they could only stay at home, or maybe they were in an elder home or something like that. They weren't able to come into class and sit with us, sit with the students, and so that was tough for us. And even maybe we weren't able to see them either. But we knew we had their support from the beginning. As you see in that top picture, that was probably about 2004 or so. And you see all those elders, and then they're all gone now today. And we have a couple elders with us that are in this other picture. But that was the thing that we fight, time against that kind of time too. The time for the life of this language, and our elders that are fluent and experts. Also, time spent creating lessons. Like what Casey was talking about in his thinking outside the box. You have to think of these different ways, and it might not work. What we do might not work for another tribe or even another school on the reservation. So, but it works for us, and we've found that maybe it does good. The style we use, I won't go into too much of the methodology that we use, but the main one we use it's called ASLA, Accelerated Second Language Acquisition, and by Dr. Stephen Graymore. That's the style we use, but time for that you have to spend. So not only during the work day, the so-called work hours, but after hours too. So sometimes, I joke around to people that my job that I have never shuts off. It's even when you sleep too, 24 hours. And also time for the administration part of this stuff, which Lynette takes care of. And she, like I told you, she goes around and tries to secure funding and make connections and those kind of things. And, other things like housekeeping things, and but maybe we'll get into that too much. And also our other duties at the college. For me, I'm the director of American Indian Studies, so I have to teach full-time college classes, and then I have to find time in that schedule to help teach these children, and then all that stuff. And we're involved in different committees on campus. And then sometimes you want to get a higher education or further your degree, that's what we did with our doctoral programs. So all of those kind of things all intertwine in there. Some more challenges, and good and bad, I suppose. The support. You get support from the parents of the students, the students themselves, whether they buy into it or not, the community, public schools, and our own family. You get support from all of those things, all of those entities, but sometimes you don't either. And sometimes they're against you as well. So you have to be brave to know that you're going to lose friends. You might even, you'll always have your family, but you may not talk to them for a while, but you might lose a friendship with them too. But I think it all evens out. To me, you even lose enemies sometimes. You gain a friend, but eventually it all evens out. But just be aware of those kind of things, the words that people will say, that have been said to us. Some positive and negative. We just have to deal with those kind of things. If we were, I think someone. See, we grew up. My parents went to California and on relocation, moved to Glendive, Montana. But I was lucky that I was always raised in the culture. And then we eventually made our way back here. And after we got our master's degree, and sometimes people would say, oh, they'll only last a couple of years. Even the school, they said, oh, it'll only last a couple of years and then they'll be done and things like that. But no, we kept going because we believed in this and we were determined to do this, and we made a sacrifice to accomplish this goal. And we're still not done with it. We still have a long way to go, but in those words, you have to, you could even help, they might even fuel you to do better. Keep in mind they're always going to be there. Like, I put some pictures of the people that support us, and one of my uncles, he would always say, just let him talk, just keep doing your work. And I put Joe on there too. That was our first graduating ceremony. That's my oldest daughter there getting an eagle feather from this. Graduating in 8th grade, and then she went on to high school. But they supported us, and sometimes you ask people to hold a ceremony for you, or you have your own little ceremonies in your own house, or things like that. Those things all help you. As my uncle would always say, he was always a believer in prayer. And then you see him down in the bottom right with my dad in that picture. And I put my dad in there too, because Lynette always says this, and maybe she wants to go into this more, but she always credits him as the only one that supported her with positive words from the beginning. And thinking back on it, I think, yeah, I guess he was the only one to do that. And she tells that story better, but that's why I included him in here. And Joe, my wife's adopted dad, he always supported our school as well. Bottom line is, too, one more thing. All of those things, too, you still have to do it yourself. You still have to count on yourself. Because how I was raised, sometimes people might help you, or they might not, or they might hinder you. But the bottom line is, you got to do it yourself. Sometimes you got to count on yourself if you want to get things done. And for the most part, sometimes we had to do that. And in conclusion, all of those things combined, good and bad, all of those things, or when you think you should quit, maybe sometimes we felt that way, and who knows, I'm sure we're going to feel that way some other time too, but that's the way it is. But we all have to go back to remember our purpose and our mission of this school. Remember who and what we're here for, who we are as people, as Ani people. Keep in mind that the language is most important in this school. So we can't change our mission to please one student or two students or one parent or whatever. The goal we need to please is the language, and remember who we are. Because we're not just doing it for ourselves. And that's one of the things that I think about in becoming, learning the languages. Learning the languages that sometimes I won't feel that natural humor that you might, when these fluent speakers say something in a jokingly manner, or a word or something like that. They'll genuinely laugh about it. But us guys, I think, it's our second language, and we don't have that genuine or that natural laugh about it. Maybe we'll develop it, but we hope that our kids or grandkids will have that natural thing as they become, hopefully, that will be their first language, the Ani language. So we always keep that in mind, and remember these old people that went through these boarding schools. I'm not sure if Lynette who wants to say anything? She might field. She said she'd field some questions like that. And one more thing too is when we do this work, and all of you too, if you embark on this work, there's probably not going to be much praise, and so don't do it for the praise. We never did it for the praise or the fame or whatever that is, or to be an expert or be proclaimed an expert in anything. One of the things that does, I guess, bug us a little bit is we need to do this work, but sometimes outsiders want to, I guess, research or make their name or write books about what we're doing, and then they become the experts of what we're doing. And I think that's one of the most important things we as Indian people, as Ani, as Dakota, that we do it ourselves and keep in mind we're the experts. And, but we need help too, from all kinds of people. So with that, if there's no other, if you don't have questions for Lynette.
Kistanan, matsuapi tapi, ikenepuye, sukapi puye. As I was saying in Japanese, is hello in Indian, huh? There's no way to really express what I said in English, having it be a noun-based language. It's quite hard to really be expressive coming from a verbal, indigenous language. But what I started with was Oki Niksu Kweks, hello, my relations. And thinking holistically as Native people, we understand that as connection to all human beings, But understanding my culture and what I've been taught, it's even deeper than that. We're recognizing the life in which we all breathe and everything in the natural world that we are connected to. So when I say Oki Niksu Kweks, I'm acknowledging not only all the people, but the rocks, the rivers, the animals, even the stars, because they're all made up of life. So the language really taught me my connection to this world, gave me an identity, and it's important for us to understand these things and keep these going for future generations. As he said, I was given my Blackfoot name when I was 3 days old by my great-grandmother. She was around 109, and she gave me the name Asnapui, Cree speaker, although I don't know much Cree. But it was the name of one of my ancestors who was known for speaking 5 different languages, and one of them being Cree. So I got that name. I'm also a quarter Catholic on my father's side, but born again savage, I like to say Niska, Nitsitapi, we're human beings having the ability to understand that. Those come from the source of life. The Creator taught us how to be human beings, and I think it's important for us to get back into understanding that connection to who we are and to who our ancestors were, and it's through our language and through our ways that we understand these things. Blackfoot people, us indigenous people, we have the oldest cultures in the world here, and we're still here, further back than what Western science can understand. For an example, I recently started working for TIPO, Tribal Historic Preservation, on my reservation. We're excavating a site, and we found a Atlatl point that was dated to be 5,500 years old, and it's a Blackfoot artifact that the people used 5,000 years ago. To give an example, one of the 7 great wonders of the world outside of London is Stonehenge. It's dated to be around 5,000 years old. And the people there, they're not sure about it. They don't know their language. They don't know who they were. They don't know their history, their culture. They don't even know why they built that monument. You know, but I can say that Adlatl Point that we found on my reservation come from my people. And the language they spoke is the language I introduced myself in. The ceremonies and the culture that we had then, we still have today. And those are things we need to recognize, we need to acknowledge. You know, if we look at, we're being dated in the Western sense. 2016 years ago was in the birth of Christianity, you know. 5,000 years is 3,000 years before that. So you think about how old our people are. You know, we've been here a while, and I think we have a lot to teach to the outside world and a lot to understand for our own selves. Language, song, and ceremony all go together. Learning the language is what opened the door to my identity. But understanding my culture really filled in the universe and helped me understand the balance between the two. You know, my great uncle, Chief Bull was his name, Richard Sanderville, was one of the first Blackfeet to go to Carlisle and learn English. And he became one of the first interpreters of the people. I understand the connection I have with him. We both come from a time where language was really important. You know, in his era, it was assimilate or die, pretty much. And when he went to the Carlisle Indian School, he came back as a Methodist, and he taught his kids English because he realized the importance of speaking English. My parents weren't taught their language. And my mother, when she asked her grandmother why they didn't teach her, she said, because we loved you. We didn't want you to be punished like we were. You know, and coming around full circle, I'm the first generation to be born after 1978, the Freedom of Religion Act. I'm the first generation to actually be free to learn my culture, free to practice, free to speak my language. You know, so we're at a time now where we need to take advantage of these things. You know, and it's a victory every time we learn a new word, every time we learn how to pray. It's not just a victory to ourselves and our own accomplishments, but it's a victory for our ancestors, for the ones who couldn't speak, who weren't allowed to speak, for the abuse and the things that our people went through. You know, they died for us to have these things. So it's our obligation to keep that going. You know, there's been so much in language vitalization for a long time now. You know, I was fortunate enough to attend the Real Speak School, co-founded by the late Apinakwapita, Darryl Ropes Kip. You know, and he started it with just a vision to teach children their language, but it grew from that. And I owe everything in the language to his dream for that. As I'd say, when I look out in the audience, I see the best looking and smartest audience out there. So I really appreciate you guys inviting me down here to speak. It's an honor for me to be here, and I thank you guys for inviting me. Also in my introduction, I introduced my clan, Small Currency, as well as Southern Peigan, Southern Spotted Robe, or people of the Blackfoot Confederacy, one of 4 nations of the Siksikaetstepi, the Blackfoot Confederacy. But I also wanted to mention I have some family up here in Hayes. I don't know if you guys say Hayes or Jays, or I don't know what the proper terminology is, but my dad's grandpa married a woman from here, Louise Cochran. John Croft married her, and I was only visited a few times, unfortunately, so hoping to meet some cousins out here. It's good to be in this part of the country. One of my first teachers was my Grandpa Jess Blackweasel, who I'm named after in Blackfoot. As I said, my real name, Esnape, is from one of my ancestors who spoke 5 languages, and my English names I'm named after my grandfathers, Jess and Eugene Tynes-Kip, and then my Grandpa Fred Desrosier, his last name. But my Grandpa Jess only had a formal 8th grade education from the boarding school. But I have yet to meet a science professor who was as knowledgeable as he was about our environment. This old man, would tell stories to us in Blackfoot, tell stories of seasons, and sometimes he wouldn't speak at all, but it was all filled with knowledge, even his silence. Then in the 3rd grade, I started attending Nitzipos in the the Cutswood Immersion School. And at that time, there was a group of us who were going in 4th and 5th grade, and we didn't quite have a school. Daryl got a house next to the lot where our school was, and we started in an actual house. And the group of us older kids, we took on the name Itukskiteks, which means the lost children. And it comes from a story of the Blackfoot people where they abandoned the children, and eventually the children were pitied from the sun is to bed to be open, they were brought back to the people. And the lesson was not to abandon your children. But I think, there's a lot of us who are a part of that Itukskiteks generation, that lost children generation. Because, like I said, my parents' generation didn't have the opportunity to learn to speak. It was very few and far between. So, I think a part of our healing process, part of our coming back around and healing from our historical trauma and the tragedies that our people have been through, is through our language, through our identity. Being able to say, Niska, Nitsitapi. I am a human being. And I can only imagine how hard it must have been for our people to not be able to teach that to their kids, out of fear, out of love. Not be able to express themselves in that way, So when we understand those things, we're healing ourselves, but we're acknowledging our ancestors and what they went through. And we're also doing it for our children and our great-grandchildren, the future generations, In our way, no seats are empty, so these seats out here, there's people in them. Our ancestors are here, they're hearing us speak today, they're hearing us carry the song. And I want to thank everybody here who's a part of that mission to keep it on. Speakers, because that's where our knowledge and our identity is truly coming from. I graduated, as I said, in 2002 from the Immersion school, went on to high school, and after 2007 I graduated and started working for Uncle, Uncle Sam's Misguided Children, served to protect the integrity of the Constitution and our oil developments across the seas. But when I was overseas and stuff, I was gone 34 months from my reservation, and in that time I realized Indigenous people and how connected we are to place, and how much our culture and language revolves around our place in the universe. Each tribe has a specific traditional territory, not just reservation boundaries, but our traditional homes. Within these places, we have stories of how things were created. We recognize the importance of different things in the natural world, and as we venture throughout the world and visit different indigenous communities, we see different landscapes, we see different languages, we see different ceremonies, we see different climates. You know, and our people are the most adaptive people in this universe. You know, we've been adapting since before Europeans even landed. Ever since before Columbus got lost at sea, we've been adapting, you know. And it's important to understand our history of these places in our environment, because as they change, we need to grow with it. We need to look back. There's so much more description in our languages than there is in a noun-based language. And I say, you know, I've been attacking the English language a lot, but it's a noun-based language. What that means is everything is just a person, a place, or a thing. The only animate thing in English, the only living thing is human beings. Everything else is just a thing. And it's totally different from indigenous language. In my language, Blackfoot, it's a verbal-based language. Everything is animate in the natural world. Even certain things that are made can be animate, can be living, can have life. You know, and some of the differences in that, like in English, I say desk, chair, water, coffee, you know, those are just things. And Blackfoot, when I say supa, it's hitesuyo, hoki, siksikimi, you know. What I'm saying is the thing that I eat on top of, or hitesenakyo, the thing that I write on top of, the thing that I sit on top of. These are animate things. They have a function, they have a purpose. But when we get into the natural world, mix this tree, you know, reaching up, we understand that's a living thing, you know, and it serves a purpose, it's serving life, you know, it's providing life, it's eating, it's drinking, it's breathing. We're a part of it, we're connected to it. You know, and it's not to say that we didn't ever chop down trees or didn't ever burn wood, you know, because that's crazy to think that. We're a part of our environment, we utilize it. You know, I worked with some of the wilderness people, and the biggest thing on wilderness is untrammeled by man. That's what they put in there, is untrammeled by man, you know, because to them that's the most pristine environment. But as Native people, we understand that we've always been a part of nature. There's a way to live with nature without trampling it. There's a way to be a part of our environment without destroying it, you know. There has never been wilderness without humans in our way of life. We've always been a part of our environment. You know, talking about the trees, one of my first language teachers, Sikskyaki, Beverly Hungry Wolf, she told us a story. She said, "Oh, mixie mixies, gachs and nanix." These trees out here, they're your ancestors, you know. And I said, "You mean they come from trees?" You know. And she's like, "Me kakotsik, achsu kuex, achsu wex, itauch God see You know, long ago, our warriors, they would protect our people. Their duty of a male, you know, was to be the first line of defense. Sometimes when we go out to protect our lands or our people, we'd give our life. And they'd put their bodies high in the trees so that their spirits be free. Through time, they'd fall down to the earth. And their bodies, their blood, their bones would feed the soil. And it would go into the trees. It would go into the rocks and the waters. So your ancestors are a part of these trees, so you respect them, you understand them. That's the connection that we have as Indigenous people. You know, our DNA is in our environment. We are a part of it just as much as it's a part of us. You know, we come from matrilineal cultures. You know, when I introduce myself, I introduce my grandparents on my mother's side because, you know, that's appropriate for my culture. In this Western sense, we're from a really patriarchy, male-dominated society, you know. Females just got the right to vote not too long ago, you know. But, so it's hard to understand those things when we think about it, just in the tools that we got from Western sense. When we think about it holistically, there's a balance with men and women, you know. And a lot of people talk about Browning and Blackfeet, you know, being rough. That it's kind of rough, but if there's one thing that a Blackfoot guy is afraid of, it's a Blackfoot woman, you know. And I come from a long line of very strong Blackfeet women, you know, but in our culture, women have a more important role. They're more sacred than men. There's not one ceremony where the woman isn't in charge of. They had a say. They own the lodge. You know, as a man, it's our duty to protect our women, to protect our children and our elders. It's our duty to provide and work hard and strive for those things. You know, and in this contemporary world, we still share a common enemy, but our battles aren't being fought on the fields. We're not being shot no more. We're not accepting small plot banquets at this time. But our battles are in the courthouses and the classrooms, you know, and it's our duties to be educated in this Western sense, to know what's going on. You know, fortunately, now we all speak the English language fluently. We all understand these ways fluently, you know. But we need to balance that with our own knowledge. In order for us to reserve our seat at a table, we have to have something to bring. And what we have is what's entitled to us, is our language and our cultures. Because if we don't have something to bring to the table, if we don't have a seat at the table, we're going to be served as the main course again. So it's important for us to understand these things. Our knowledge and our language and our histories goes far beyond what Western science has understood. After I come home from the military, I bounced around working about every labor job you can think of, you know, how it is on a reservation, and I realized I wanted to do something more. I wanted to be able to have that certificate from an institution that codifies that knowledge. You know, I wanted to be successful, as they say. So I remember I moved over to Missoula, and you know, I started spending some time on campus and just hearing young Native people talk about, you know, indigenous perspectives and words like tribalism, tribal sovereignty, you know. At the time, you know, I thought sovereignty was a girl from Rocky Boy. I didn't know much of it, you know. So it really intrigued me hearing these big words, you know, and I was fortunate to understand my language being bilingual a bit. I can express myself, you know, because a lot of people come from a reservation. We're not taught to really express ourselves in certain ways, you know. Otherwise, you're acting good, you're going to scrap, you know. So it really intrigued me to learn these things. And there's a Native American Studies Department at the University of Montana, a great building, $1 million building dedicated to Native American studies. Beautiful. The staff there work. There's even some Indians who teach, you know. It's not just all white people who teach our people, but it's some Native people. But you know, while I was there, they had classes like indigenous perspectives, they had beliefs and philosophy, they had history, all these courses. You know, and Montana is home to over 10 indigenous languages. And only one of them at that time was being taught, and it was considered an elementary course. And it kind of blew my mind. You know, how can we truly understand indigenous perspectives, beliefs and philosophies, history, without understanding some sense of the language, you know? And I took the Blackfoot language course there, and then as a requirement, required to take a foreign language in college. So I put that in as a foreign language, and it got denied because the course wasn't recognized. Shortly after that, you know, the teacher, being an adjunct teacher, she was struggling with materials and everything. She wasn't able to come back. And I remember it was about my second year in school, and there was no language. You know, and I felt this deep loss, you know, like something was really missing. Although it was never a big priority to have language at the university level, I really felt like something was lost in that. And I remember I was taking this Indigenous Studies course, because I'm an anthropology major, and they did a week-long class on language, and they even mentioned Darrell Kipp's school in his dream to teach the children language. And that's when I realized that we needed to continue that, you know, at the university level. We need to continue that fight to keep language, to express the importance of language. And I remember I was acting good, and I was in a class, and I was talking about it, and I mentioned, well, you know, we should start a club or something for language. Geez, the next thing you know, I got an interview, and somebody took my picture looking stoic, you know, in the sunset, and I made it into the paper there saying that I was going to start a language club. And then after that happened, I said, oh shoot, well now I got to do it, you know. So I got together with a bunch of classmates, faculty, you know, and we weren't quite sure what we wanted to do, but I said, well, let's have a meeting. We had a meeting. And, you know, language is powerful. It brings people together. It brought people from every different field of study. Because language is at the root of any culture, you know. It's connected to everything that we do. Health, education, history, you know, whatever subject you got, language can be a part of it. Learning any language, you know, it's not just learning the words, it's learning a perspective of that culture's universe. It's getting a glimpse of the whole universe through that cultural perspective. You know, learning our own language gives us a perspective of who we are, who our ancestors were in the world that we see, you know. And, well, I'm no full-blood or anything like that, you know. My name's Desrosier. I'm French, and Irish, and German, and even some Grovan. But what I know is Nisakan Itsitapi, you know. I can't tell you too much about any of those things, but I could explain to you in my language who I am, you know. And that's how I understand it. So when we got together, there was one guy, Kevin Kickenwoman, who's been a great resource, big influence for Sacred Roots. You know, we said, well, instead of making a club, you know, because there's a lot of student clubs, we'll call it a society, because traditionally, that's what we had was societies. And so Kevin got us a song. From there, he knew a person who put on runs and wanted to put on a run with Native Americans, you know, because Indians like to run, I guess. So we decided we'll do a fundraising event and put on a 5K fun run. And the other thing that we decided is we wanted to have a language conference. We wanted to have people involved in language revitalization, people involved in language learning, language teachers, non-natives, linguists. We wanted everybody to get together and just be able to have a place to talk about language, you know, to tease each other in their own way. So that was our goal, was just a run and a conference. But from the start, we made a video. We started our club in January, and we made a Valentine's Day themed video, just saying "Gitsikako," saying "I love you." We got 24 different people I think there was over 10 different languages. People just coming in to say, "Kitsikako." You know, that was the start, our first project. You know, and for that, I think it's important to get back to loving ourselves, respecting ourselves. So that was our first project. And then we teamed up with a guy from YMCA who helped us with our run, Dennis Bender. And we put on our 5K fun run to fundraise for our conference. And you know, at University of Montana, student groups are recognized through the ASUM, and we get a budget from the university there. And when it was starting out, we needed 10 signatures to be an official group. And in our first meeting, we ended up with 42 signatures. We found 42 students, not including our faculty and staff, but 42 students who were willing to be a part of language. They wanted to learn, they wanted to teach, they wanted to understand, you know. And so we started putting together our budget. And when I was doing that, we consulted with different Native American clubs that were at the university, like Kiayo, Able, and asking them how much they were requesting for a budget, you know. And they were, you know, 500 was the highest amount, and they were pretty worried that they wouldn't get 500. So we started budgeting out conference costs, speaking fee, all this stuff, and we estimated for a decent conference we wanted $10,000, you know. And I know that people thought I was crazy because I said, well, I'm going to ask for 10,000. You know, at the time they were doing budget cuts and stuff, and they looked at me like I was crazy. And all the other student groups, why are you asking that much? They're not going to give you it all. I said, well, if I ask for 2, they might give me 500. If I ask for 10, maybe they'll give me more, you know? What do I got to lose? And they ended up giving us 3,000. And I think we were one of the clubs who got the most money in the whole university. But it was because of our presentation we gave to them. And we showed them what we wanted to do. When the fall time came around last fall, we ended up reaching our goal of $10,000, and we put on our first language conference. So it was a success that year. And this year we're planning on doubling that. Because the vision of language, the dream that people had to teach language is still carrying on. And we need to stop worrying about things that we put up as barriers in our minds. You know, if our dream is big enough and true enough, we can accomplish anything. You know, money is an illusion that we can't worry about, stress about so much. You know, it's there. Language is slowly being recognized at the state and federal levels. You know, but we need to be at the front of that. We need to be heading that, spear pointing that. One of Daryl's rules was show, don't tell, you know. So we need to have places where people can speak. We need to establish places to where our youth will find it appealing and interesting to learn, to say words, to pray, because these are important, you know. So, you know, being a part of Sacred Roots Language Society, I understand struggles that all you guys have had in language. I understand it's not a job that comes with a lot of compliments. You know, it comes with a lot of frustrations, but the dream and the vision is there, and the goal can be achieved. Going back to a story, the late Daryl Kipp, when he first started the school, there was a lot of backlash in the community. People were wondering why try to save the language, why teach the language, you know? And there was an elder who come in who recently passed away. His name was Meek Skim. Frank Weaselhead. He was visiting a school and he's seeing these kids speak the language. And he asked Daryl Kipp, he said, you know, this is really amazing what you're doing here with these kids learning the language. He said, do folks come in here and compliment you? And Daryl said, well, not so much. And Frank said, well, that's good. He said, because you're not doing this for compliments. He said, I'll tell you, one day, after we're both long and gone, far from now, somebody's going to come around here and they're going to see kids speaking the language. And they're going to say, where did you learn that? And those kids will say, well, some crazy guy, Daryl Kipp, decided he wanted to teach children the language. And he said, that's when your compliment will be. You know, so when we strive to teach, strive to push and revitalize our language, sometimes it's not being seen right away. We can't be discouraged with that, because down the road, people are going to pick that up. Nowadays we have media and technology, you know. These are great tools for documenting. They're not the answers, but they're great tools and ways to share, ways to understand, ways to appeal to a younger generation. So I think as a Cutswood student, it is my obligation to continue on with language, you know. As much as language done for me, I have to be able to share that, you know. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and I tell her every night, "Itami kuku, kitsigakumen," you know, good night, I love you, you know, and I speak to her in the language, and it's crazy to hear her say these words because she pronounces them better than college kids do, you know. But you know, our children and our next generations, that's our smudge, you know. We were given this way of life, we were given our language at the beginning of time by the source of life. The first ceremony that my people were given was a smudge. And ever since it was lit, my people have been prosperous, very strong, knowledgeable, good way of life. We suffered some dark times recently, some historical trauma, forced colonialism, forced assimilation, but our smudge is still lit. And it's in our youth and our children that we gotta remain. Our sipatsimo, katuyisiks, our smudge has to stay lit with them. So it's important for us to pass that on to our next generation. Like I said, I wanted to thank everybody for allowing me to speak here today. I want to thank you all for coming. Thank you all for coming. I greet each and every one of you today. You know, I'll just add another note. Sacred Roots has been possible because we're very exclusive in letting anyone and everyone be a part of it as well. We had some great support from Linguist Club and linguistic majors. You know, they see language a little bit differently, but they can be utilized in revitalization efforts. As Native people, you know, we're always finding a connection. When we introduce ourselves, we always introduce our families and who we are to find that connection. But we need to continue that with our languages and our cultures. So that's pretty much all I got today. Any questions? Nope? Okay. Kenixio, not be quicks. That's what the white man said. Thank you.